This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, Matthew Stafford wins his first NFL playoff game, a very elusive NFL playoff win that he's had throughout his career. I want to ask the question if Matthew Stafford, if you're happy for him, or if you're just said enough. I don't want the Rams to succeed because it benefits the Lions. We'll get into that a little bit more as well. Also, the Bengals won their playoff game, so the Lions officially have the longest playoff win drought in the NFL so far. And I just want to ask, how long is it until the Lions, get their first playoff victory since 1991? And also, I know we don't talk about the Pistons a ton on the podcast, but the Pistons voiding the Bol Bol trade. And I want to just talk a little bit about that and see why the Pistons even wanted to trade for him and why the trade was voided in the first place. So we have a loaded baked potato here on Open Mic Night. I hope everybody had a great weekend out there. Coming to you a little bit late. Now, this is the first week of school back here at John Carroll, starting my second semester of grad school and being the sports information graduate assistant here at such a wonderful Jesuit university here on the east side of Cleveland. And with all the NFL connections and everything, it's just such a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And I could not see myself at any other school, really. Undergrad and grad school now, it's wonderful, and I'm really, really happy to be back. And the people here are great. So if you're new to listening to the podcast, thanks for joining us. And just know that I'll be dropping some John Carroll references a lot during some of these podcasts, especially with a lot of the the NFL connections we've had. 3 general managers. We have a head coach, Brandon Staley, who used to coach at John Carroll as well. Some coordinators, Greg Roman with the offensive coordinator for the Ravens, and of course Frank Ross, who's the special teams coordinator for the Texans, among so many others. Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator for the Patriots as well. So I'll be definitely shouting them out a little bit as we go, hopefully in the playoffs as well. A couple of John Carroll connections on Matthew Stafford's team, the Rams. Jonathan Cooley is a John Carroll grad. He is, I believe, the defensive backs coach or the assistant defensive backs coach, one of those. And then Chris Shula, the linebackers coach. He did not graduate, but of course his grandfather, Don, class of 1951. But Chris did coach at John Carroll for a year. He was the defensive coordinator back in 2014. So John Carroll, and then, of course, Brandon Staley being the defensive coordinator for the Rams last year before he took the head gig in on the other side of town in Orange County with the Los Angeles Chargers. But Matthew Stafford winning his first NFL playoff game. I mean, it took him 13 years, but he finally got it done with a 34-11 drubbing of the Arizona Cardinals. Guys, this Cardinal team, I got to say, they have not been the same since they lost the Lions. Remember when Cliff Kingsbury and company thought, we're Texas Tech, and we're playing, Texas Southern. This is just going to be such an easy win. Wrong. Cliff, this is the NFL. It stands for not for long if you can't beat teams like the Lions. And sure enough, they just have not been able to be the same. And I was doing my picks for the NFL playoffs. I'm doing it for a little bit of money with a couple buddies of mine. And, I'm looking through the games, and I thought for a sec, Stafford's 0-3 in the playoffs. I don't know. But when I saw they were playing the Cardinals, home game, I know the Rams weren't coming in as hot. They just lost a bad loss to the 49ers. But I just thought, the Cardinals, they just haven't been the same since they lost to us. I don't think the Cardinals have any chance in this game. And Stafford did enough early. He only attempted, I believe, 17 passes in the game. Very efficient early on and really didn't have to do much the rest of the game because of how bad the Cardinals played. So a very impressive win for Matthew Stafford and company. And I was really happy he was able to get that monkey off of his back because that was a big burden, I think, that was on Matthew Stafford's shoulders. He could never, he was a great statistical quarterback, but just could never, lead his team in the big games. And that was very evident with the Lions. And, of course, he ended with a losing record here in Detroit and not a single playoff win. And, the Dallas win, or the Dallas game in 2014 in the playoffs, as much as you want to blame the referees, for that bad call on Brendan Pettigrew and all that, like, really, I think a lot of that, ultimately rests on the quarterback's shoulders. So Matthew Stafford, being labeled as a guy that could never get it done, and but he finally was able to get it done. And the Rams moving on in the divisional round, and they're playing the Bucs. And I don't think they're going to beat the Bucs. I think this is the end of the road for the Rams this year. And this is a team that really a lot of people expected could be one of the powers in the NFC this year. Sort of like a Super Bowl or bust kind of team with all that talent that they have and the great coaching in McVay and an upgrade at quarterback from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford. And, the other thing, too, is if the Rams would have lost, because remember, the Lions have the Rams' first-round pick this year, part of the Matthew Stafford trade. So the Lions, as of now, no trades or anything. The Lions have the second overall pick, and then they have wherever the Rams will finish. Once if they lose to Tampa Bay next week, then they'll be able to get a better draft spot than if they win. But look, I'm not one of those people that cares a lot about that. Is it nice? Of course, but I'm just happy for Matthew Stafford in general. I mean, this guy is my favorite player of all time. And, it's sort of like a similar situation to Justin Verlander. He's my favorite baseball player of all time with the Tigers. I really wanted him to win a World Series with Houston. Same sort of deal with Matthew Stafford. I want him to eventually win a Super Bowl at the Rams. Do I believe it's going to happen this year? No. But, I want him to continue to have that playoff success and all that. Now, because I just want to know, maybe what some people out there might think. Because I know there's people on both sides. There's people like me who have always loved Stafford, who have always, considered him, really like a god in Detroit, if you know what I mean. And I know there's other people out there that just say enough with Matthew Stafford, enough with Kelly Stafford, just enough with the whole Stafford family, please. He's out of Detroit. He's in LA. Just get him out of my thinking, So, but I take the side of I cheer for him. I cheer for the Lions first. I did not want Stafford to beat the Lions. Like one of those things. But in terms of cheering for a single athlete, I definitely am in favor of cheering for Stafford. And look, I understand that it gets annoying because the biggest news in Detroit sports this week really was Stafford getting his first playoff win. I mean, and he doesn't even play for the team anymore. That's how starved for content we are, I feel like, in Detroit. I'm looking on Facebook and all that, and I'm seeing all these stories about how Stafford won his first playoff game, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he doesn't even play for the Lions anymore, and these stories are dominating the headlines. Unbelievable. But, I'm happy for him. But, the whole Kelly Stafford thing, too. And I just want to add this really, really quick. So, Kelly Stafford, she has her own podcast now, and she has her own opinion. She's very opinionated. We've seen it in the past. And I found it interesting because when I was back home, I listened to a lot of Mike Valeni and some other guys on 97.1. And they're talking about how the content, every time Kelly Stafford is in the news for something, she throws a soft pretzel at a fan, or if she's going on and on about something on her podcast or something, that content always seems to do better online, with views and likes and all that, than anything about Matthew Stafford. It's just something about Kelly Stafford. It's just, and I've always thought of it as, look, we know Matthew doesn't have social media. We know he's a quiet, more reserved guy. And Kelly, I think throughout the years, Detroit fans have always thought of Kelly as being kind of like the voice for Matthew outside, of the normal press conferences and on the field and all that. So I think when she speaks, I think people, listen. And plus, like I said before, very opinionated sometimes and not afraid to speak her mind. So I think a lot of that just in itself drags some attention as well. So I think it's very interesting, and why his wife Kelly is getting more attention on social media with news stuff than Matthew is. And I know there was that whole thing of she wasn't able to go to games, or she didn't want to go to games anymore. She wanted to calm down after throwing that pretzel and all. It's just a lot of drama, and I love to stay out of that stuff. But I respect the whole battle that Kelly had with the brain tumor, and then they're raising the family, and I get all that, but sometimes this LA drama is a little too much for me. So it's just I guess just a little update on Matthew Stafford. But like I said, I take the side of not I want to cheer for him. I'm not saying this is going to affect the Lions. I don't I want the Rams to lose, get a better draft pick. No, I don't want any of that. Plus, I think really Brad Holmes and company knew the Rams could make a deep playoff run. So I think they were kind of expecting to have a lower pick in the first round for the Rams. I don't think these guys were expecting a pick like 20, 21st, 22nd. No, I think they were expecting high 20s, possibly even low 30s. So I think they had this all mapped out of where the Rams might finish up this year. So this is no surprise or anything. A lot of people thought the Rams would be in this situation of, making it far in the NFL playoffs, possibly going to the Super Bowl. So I'm not concerned about the draft spot at all. I do want to mention Cincinnati Bengals beating the Las Vegas Raiders at home. And now the Lions have the distinguished honor of having the longest playoff drought in the NFL now. Of course, the Bengals had not won a playoff game since 1990, and the Lions now have not won a playoff game since the 1991 season. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the Bengals did have the record. I think a lot of people thought out there that Detroit had the record. But no, the Bengals, 1990, they were just... After that Super Bowl run in 1988 when they lost to the 49ers, they were just never the same. And they were, I believe, the worst team in the NFL in the 1990s in terms of winning percentage. And, Dave Shula, who kind of was the coach to kick off the 90s, of course, Don Shula's son, great guy, was able to meet him in Miami. But he was kind of the face of that 1990s, debacle, I guess, that the Bengals have, and they were just never the same. And they, Marvin Lewis brought him back a little bit with Carson Palmer and Ocho Cinco and company, but they were just never able to win, that playoff game. But finally, Zach Taylor and a young quarterback, young supporting cast, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins and company. That's a fine job, and I really liked how Zach Taylor, took those game balls out to Cincinnati, the town, and was spreading love around with. Those different bars, get different game balls to the different bars in Cincinnati with all those Bengals fans, and that was cool. And it gave me goosebumps because I was thinking to myself, is this what it's going to be like when we win our first playoff game? Hopefully with Dan Campbell. Is he going to go around Detroit and start giving out game balls to all those fans that waited so long? All those bars. I was thinking, mate. I'm really hoping that happens when the Lions win that first playoff game. But we'll see. But I just want to ask the question, and I really want to know when is it the Lions' turn? When is it? Because we saw last year the Bills win a playoff game. We saw the Browns win a playoff game last year. This year we see the Bengals win a playoff game. These are teams that had the longest droughts in the NFL alongside us. When is the Lions' turn? When? I'd love to know. It's it's been a long time coming. And I know we are maybe a little bit closer this year than we were last year because of the whole rebuild. When we still are in a rebuild, but year 2 of Jared Goff, a pretty solid offensive line. I just wonder maybe when it hopefully. I mean, I would say, and we talked about it on the podcast, I believe last week. I'm guessing the Lions are going to get 7 or 8 wins next year. Probably not good enough to make the playoffs. But I think the next year, so this would be 2023, next season, after this year, 2022. I think the Lions should be aiming for 10, 11 wins. So I'm hoping 2023 is the ETA of when the Lions will get it done and end the worst playoff win drought in the NFL right now. 2023, guys. And if not 2023, 2024. I think a playoff win is coming here in Detroit. I do. Because guys are playing for Dan Campbell. And if you mix that with talent, bringing talent in, real NFL players. Some guys on the Lions, I love them, but they're not real NFL players. More like practice squad guys. CFL, XFL guys. I want to see this team win a playoff game. 2023 or 24. That's what I think. Just be patient, Lions fans, please. Please. Don't give up on this team yet. I think there's some special stuff coming, and we'll be talking Lions a lot in the next couple weeks as well. Hopefully, I want to get a couple guests on and just kind of recap this season and what's going on moving forward as well. All right, last thing on the agenda before we close out, and I just want to mention this briefly. This Pistons trade with Bol Bol was voided. After he failed a physical. So Bol Bol, of course, is the son of the tallest player in NBA history, Manute Bol, who played the 80s and 90s. He actually passed away about 10 years ago from Sudan. So, his son, Bol Bol. That's so 2 Bols, B-O-L, B-O-L. He was a second-round pick, 44th overall back in 2019. He played a season at Oregon and was a McDonald's All-American in high school. Went to 4 different high schools in 4 years, 2 in Kansas, Mater Dei in California, and Findlay Prep in just outside of Vegas in Nevada. Listed as 7'2", 220. This is a guy, he's 22 years old, and he's really struggled his first couple years in the NBA, and I think a lot of that has to do with these injury problems. He just had surgery on his foot, and the Pistons, they wanted to trade for him from the Denver Nuggets, but unfortunately, the foot was a concern during his physical, and the Pistons decided, no, we're going to void the trade. It's interesting because I was reading something that in the last 25, 30 years, there's only been 5 voided trades in the NBA, and the Pistons have voided 3 of them. I find that interesting. I'll leave the guys from the Fan Report to do a little bit more in depth on the Pistons here with Bol Bol, but I just wanted to get my thoughts on. And look, I'm not some NBA expert or anything. I don't really watch the NBA a whole lot. I don't watch the Pistons a lot. I keep tabs on it here and there, but I'm not really, I'm not a huge fan. But I just really want to know why did the Pistons want to trade for this guy if they knew his medical problems about his foot and everything? Too much of a liability problem with, injury concerns and all. Why did the Pistons want to trade for him? I mean, I get he struggled because of injuries, but in terms of offensive production, I mean, this guy has averaged 2.7 points a game in his career. Not 1.2 rebounds a game. Look, call me crazy. Maybe I am crazy, but I just don't see why, on top of the injuries, this guy he barely scores. The NBA today, you need guys that can score. And the Pistons I get Cade Cunningham was hurt at the beginning of the year. Seems like he's starting to emerge a little bit. But I don't understand. It just seems like the Pistons for years have just never had that guy that can score. Offensively challenged players, I guess is a good word to use. they've always seemed to just draft those guys or get those guys in free agency. They need guys that can get buckets. Cade has proven the last couple months after his injury that he can get buckets. Okay, how about get more guys? I don't think Bol Bol is going to be getting, 20, 30 points a night. This guy seems to be more of a role kind of player, at least from what I've seen and what I've read. Like I said, call me crazy, but I just don't understand why the Pistons would trade for this guy, would try to trade for this guy if they knew his medical problems. And, because voided trades in the NBA are very rare. I mean, only 5, I believe, in the last 30 years. So it'll be interesting to see what the Pistons do moving forward. But this has not been a good year at all for the Pistons. And, we'll break them down a little bit more throughout the year, but it's very disappointing because I think there were some people out there that thought, maybe this might be a playoff team, maybe like an 8 seed, especially with those guys, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, playing really well last year, making the all-rookie team, and then Cade Cunningham coming this year. He was kind of like that missing piece to get to the playoffs, and then they'd get someone else to get a higher seed. Look at the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs have a winning record, and I think they have the 4 seed at this point. And, this is a team that was the worst in the NBA, 3-4 years ago. Being able to draft guys like Colin Sexton, Darius Garland. Those guys have really helped them. Just doesn't seem to be as many of those guys for the Pistons. And maybe they just need to develop a little bit more. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward. All right, just before we close out, I do want to give a special shout out to the Middle-Aged Men On podcast. They are a podcast that have done about 40 episodes so far, maybe a little bit more. It's hosted by Dave Vidido and Gene Skidmore. Now, Dave Vidido, he is the alumni relations director here at John Carroll. He graduated from JCU, played football. He's in our Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame, for being a kicker. And he hosts it with Gene Skidmore, who he's from Downriver. He's from Wyandotte. And Dave and Gene used to work together at the University of Michigan in the sports information department there. So they worked all those Michigan football games and they were assigned different sports there. So they worked in the same field, as I do with sports information. They're since not in the field anymore. They've moved on to other career ventures. But they actually just are doing this podcast for about the last year called Middle-Aged Men On. And Dave Vidido, who knows me here at John Carroll, he reached out and asked if I could be on, his podcast to, sort of highlight what I'm doing with the podcast here with Open Mic Night, a little bit about the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and so I went on, and it was a really, really great time. And if anyone is listening from Downriver out there, we do a little bit of Downriver trivia in our episode with Gene, of course, who's from Wyandotte. So it was just a really, really good time. And for guys who are around that age of middle-aged, I think it's just really, really fun to listen to. And like I said, Middle-Aged Men On, you can find it on Apple Podcasts if you just look that up. Like I said, Dave Vidido and Gene Skidmore are the guys who host it. And they've had many different guests on as well. If you're a Michigan football fan, they've had some of those guys from the sports information department over there, and some other guys from Michigan. And, they really love reminiscing the past. They've both worked Rose Bowls before, so talking about those Rose Bowl games. And, they worked there a lot in the 2000s. Old memories about Lloyd Carr and all that. So I think it's a really good listen. I've listened to a couple episodes already, and just recapping stuff in not only about Michigan, but just stuff in their lives, and just having a really, really fun time with it. So Middle-Aged Men On, it comes out every week on Apple Podcasts. So check it out. And I was really, really happy that Dave and Gene were able to have me on their podcast. It was a lot of fun, that's for sure. Please check out all the other great content here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, the Fan Report, the Michigan podcast, and Doc and Jock, of course, the original, and the wrestling podcast. All very, very good podcasts, very entertaining to listen to as well. And always make sure to check out John Macroon's Sports Illustrated page with the Detroit Lions, doing a lot of great stuff covering the Lions and everything about them. It's going to be a very interesting offseason to see where the Lions go with free agency and the whole draft process. So make sure to keep tabs on that as well. But thanks again, folks, for tuning in. And make sure to tune in next time only on Open Mic Night.